ever feel like you're totally crushing it at work, like really killing it, but then you hit this weird ceiling when you try to move up? You're nailing every single project, but something's just that off when it comes to people seeing you as a leader. Well, that's what we're diving into today.
Oh, absolutely.
You listeners have sent in some really fascinating articles and research on this whole idea of making that jump, that transition. And it seems like it all comes down to how your approach to work has to adapt as you climb that ladder.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me how much early career success is all about individual brilliance, like that whole lone wolf mentality. But then to actually transition into a leadership role, the whole game changes completely.
Right. And one source put it so well. They called it the difference between being a hired gun versus a long-term strategist.
Oh, I like that.
So early on, you're just proving you can deliver amazing results, but you're doing it solo. But to lead a team, you need a whole different set of skills.
Exactly. It's a whole different ballgame. And think about the folks in your own workplace who've really climbed the ranks. Have you noticed any common threads in their journeys?
Now that you mention it, the really successful ones, they're all incredibly well connected.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean schmoozing. I mean, they've built these genuine relationships across all different departments.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
That is so key. And, it's less about just the quantity of people it's more about who knows what you know.
Yeah.
And more importantly, trusts you to deliver on it.
Yes. Our source actually used this phrase I love. They said, advocates in closed-door meetings.
Ooh, that's powerful.
Isn't it?
It really highlights how, as you progress, decisions about your career, your trajectory, they're often being made when you're not even in the room.
Exactly.
You need people who are not only going to vouch for you, but vouch for you based on not just your work, but how you've treated them along the way.
So it's almost like that early career lone wolf phase. It's like it has a built-in expiration date if you actually want to reach a certain level.
In a way, yeah, you're right. It's about recognizing when your strengths, those things that got you here, can actually become limitations if you're not careful. That go-getter attitude, it's fantastic for individual tasks, but leadership requires buy-in from others. It's a shift from me to we.
Which makes total sense, but it honestly feels really tough to put into practice. How do you actually go from just crushing your own goals to being truly, genuinely invested in everyone else's?
It starts with understanding what success even looks like at each stage of your career, right?
Okay.
So early on, exceeding your individual targets, yeah, that's success. But later on, it becomes about how well your team performs because of your leadership. That's the new benchmark.
So it's like recognizing that your own success is becoming intertwined with the success of the people around you.
Precisely. And a big part of making that shift is actively cultivating a network of advocates, people who've seen your work firsthand, your character, and are willing to champion you when it matters most, especially when you're not in the room. And here's the thing. These advocates are often people you've worked with or maybe even helped earlier in your career.
Why, yeah.
It comes back around.
That is a really good reminder that just treating everyone with respect, no matter what their current position is or how important we might think they are, it could really pay off in the long run.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Those little interactions, the ones that might seem insignificant at the time, they can blossom into really valuable relationships down the line. You just never know who might be in a position to open doors for you in the future,
So building those relationships is crucial, but what does that even look like, practically speaking? Is it just forcing yourself to go to every networking event or sending 1 million LinkedIn requests? Is that what we're talking about?
It's so much deeper than that. Genuine connection. You can't force that.
Yeah.
Our sources all really emphasized authenticity and generosity as the foundation of a strong network.
So you're saying it's more about being a good human than being a master networker?
Exactly. It's about being someone who's known for their willingness to help others, for their integrity, for their ability to bring people together. And these qualities, they might not seem directly related to your individual performance on paper, but they're absolutely what sets exceptional leaders apart in the long run.
So how do we translate that into action? What are some tangible ways to actually build these authentic relationships without, seeming like you're just being self-serving?
Okay, so authenticity and generosity are key. Got it. But especially in a work context, it's so easy to fall into that trap of transactional networking. Like, okay, what can this person do for me? How do we even start to reframe that?
Yeah, it's such a subtle shift, but it's so crucial. One source suggested thinking of it less as networking and more like you're building your own personal board of advisors.
Ooh.
I like that. It implies more of a longer-term relationship, not just like a one-off, here's my business card kind of thing.
Exactly. Just like a company has a board of advisors to guide its growth, you need those diverse perspectives throughout your career.
Right.
And some of the people you connect with early on might become those closed-door advocates we were just talking about later down the road. Others might be those peers in your field, the ones you bounce ideas off of. You're helping each other stay sharp.
So it's not just about like climbing the ladder, but surrounding yourself with people who actually make you better at what you do too.
Precisely. But that also requires you to be someone that others want on their metaphorical boards as well.
It goes both ways.
It does. It has to. It's about that mutual benefit, that give and take, but it all has to be built on genuine respect.
Our sources did touch on something that I think makes this tricky, though. It's like, how do you actually stay connected over time, especially as careers evolve? People change roles, they change companies, life happens.
It's true. It takes effort. Maintaining those connections, it does require some effort, but it doesn't have to be this overwhelming thing. Small, consistent gestures, they go a long way.
Like what? Give me some examples. Otherwise, it's just this vague idea of like, oh yeah, stay in touch, which we all know we should do, but then life.
Right, exactly. One source had this really great example. Imagine you come across an article and it's relevant to someone you worked with, like maybe a few years back even. Just forwarding it with a quick note, something like, hey, this made me think of our work on Project X. Thought you might find it interesting. Boom. You've just rekindled that connection without it feeling forced or awkward.
So it's about being thoughtful, not just transactional. Like you said, showing you're genuinely invested in their growth, not just coming to them for favors when you need something.
Exactly. It's that long-term thinking we were talking about. Another super simple one, sending a congrats note when someone gets a promotion, even if you haven't actually spoken to them in a while. It takes, 2 minutes? But it signals that you've been paying attention to their journey. You're still invested.
It's interesting because all these examples are pretty low effort, but if you do them consistently, that impact is huge. It's like it shifts networking from this daunting task to something you've just woven into your everyday interactions. It becomes natural.
That's the key. And as you become more senior, it shifts again. It becomes less about you actively having to reach OU and more about just being approachable, being the kind of person people feel comfortable reaching out or yo.
Which loops back to that idea of celebrating other successes. If you're known for being supportive and encouraging, people are naturally going to want to include you in their wins, big or small.
Exactly. It's about fostering this culture of generosity and mutual support. It's contagious,
So we've talked a lot about the how of building these relationships, but what about the internal shift, like actually moving from that me-focused mindset to a more we-oriented approach to your work?
That's where things get really interesting. Because it's not just about changing your behaviors, it's about fundamentally shifting how you view your role within a team and within an organization.
That sounds a lot easier said than done, especially for people who've been rewarded for individual achievements for most of their careers.
Yeah.
That's like rewiring your brain for a whole new game.
Oh, it's a journey. You're right. It's not just a switch you can flip overnight. Our sources highlighted the importance of self-awareness and emotional intelligence, especially as you progress in your career.
Makes sense. You have to really understand your own strengths and weaknesses, but also those of the people you're working with.
Absolutely. And a big part of that is learning to genuinely celebrate the successes of others. It's about recognizing that their achievements don't diminish your own. If anything, they contribute to the success of the whole team.
I imagine that's a real mental hurdle for some people, though.
Yeah.
Especially those used to being the star, What advice did the sources have for approaching that shift in perspective?
One source put it as reframing your definition of success. So early on, it's individual milestones. Did you hit your targets? Did you get that promotion? But later, it becomes about the impact you have on other people, the legacy you build that goes beyond just your own output.
It's almost like shifting from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, like believing there's enough success to go around and that everyone's contributions truly matter.
Exactly. It's not this pie where someone else getting a slice means there's less for you. It's more like
we're all baking this giant career cake together and everyone brings different ingredients to the table.
Yes. That's a fantastic analogy. And celebrating other successes is like taking a bite of that cake and saying, wow, this frosting is incredible. Acknowledging that it wouldn't be the same cake without it.
I love that. It really highlights how collaborative success is, especially as you move into those leadership roles. It's no longer about being the solo baker. It's about empowering and inspiring others to create something amazing together.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that everyone has unique talents and contributions, and that by working together, by supporting each other, celebrating those wins, we can achieve so much more collectively than we ever could on our own.
Which brings us back to that shift from lone wolf to leader. It's not just about skills or experience. It's really about cultivating the mindset and the network to support not only your growth, but the growth of those around you.
Absolutely. And it might seem daunting at first, for sure, but this transition, it's incredibly rewarding when you let go of that need to be the lone hero and really embrace the power of collaboration. You unlock a whole new level of success and fulfillment in your career.
So for our listener out there today, the one who's ready to make that leap from lone wolf to leader, what's like one actionable piece of advice they can take away from everything we've talked about today?
If I could offer just one suggestion, it would be this. Start by identifying a few key relationships in your work life. And these are people you admire, people you trust, people you already feel comfortable reaching out to.
Okay, so identify those key relationships. What's next? What do they deal with that?
Reach out. Reach out to those people with a genuine desire to connect or reconnect. And it really doesn't have to be this big formal ask or a networking meeting. It could be as simple as inviting them for a quick virtual coffee chat to catch up on their work, maybe share an article that you think they'd find interesting, or even just send a quick note congratulating them on a recent accomplishment.
So small gestures, but they go a long way. Like you said, it's about being present and engaged in those relationships, even in those small ways.
Exactly. Because those seemingly insignificant interactions, those little moments of genuine connection, those are the building blocks of a truly strong and supportive network. And that is something that will serve you well throughout your entire career journey.
It's about shifting from that, what can I get, to how can I help P? And in doing so, you're creating this virtuous cycle of generosity and support. And honestly, that benefits everyone.
You said it perfectly. It's not about abandoning your ambition. It's not about downplaying your achievements. It's just about recognizing that true success. It's a collaborative endeavor.
It's about realizing that when we lift others up, we ultimately lift ourselves up too. And that's a powerful legacy to work towards. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic, so be sure to subscribe and join us again. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep crushing it out there.